We've had kind of an amazing 24 hours in American politics the past day. Yesterday, we saw House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff warn the White House, warn the State Department that any attempt to withhold documents, to obstruct, to use a phrase, the inquiry, congressional inquiries, requests for information, requests for witnesses, any of those attempts will be seen as a part of potentially impeachable offenses. And then today, just this morning, what we saw, and the point, right, of their inquiry is to get at any secret documents or turns of phrase that might reveal whether or not President Trump asked Ukraine to investigate his top political rival, Joe Biden. So while the Democrats are warning the White House and the administration not to get in the way of the search for possible signs that that happened, this morning, President Trump went out and did it live on camera regarding both Ukraine and now China. He's now asking China to investigate Joe Biden. Hunter Biden apparently had some business in China, dealt with some banking executives in China as well. So Trump just did it. And the theory behind warning, right, that attempting to cover up is known in law enforcement as consciousness of guilt. And in the law, in the eyes of the law, demonstrating consciousness of guilt can help put you away, right? Your belief that you are doing something wrong can be treated, I don't know whether it falls technically under circumstantial or what have you, but that's a viable, valid argument that prosecutors can make to convince a jury of your guilt, that you knew it was guilty. And so that in other words, you took actions to conceal, you took steps to conceal what you did because you knew it was wrong and or illegal. And with President Trump, there is no consciousness of guilt because you can argue because there's no consciousness. If you want to be really mean, come on guys, we don't have to get personal. There is no consciousness of guilt because he has conflated his own self, his brain, with the United States of America. It's the classic Nixonian formation. If the president do it, it can't be illegal. He knows that he doesn't mean to do anything wrong. Who the hell ever does, right? We just do sometimes, and sometimes you get punished for breaking the rules, and people don't care whether you had consciousness of guilt. So the problem with the Democrats right now is that this is a law enforcement tool. Consciousness of guilt is a law enforcement tool that Democrats are now treating as a law enforcement requirement. It's not a requirement. It's an optional thing that you can use. But the reality is, he's demonstrating guilt. He's not demonstrating consciousness of guilt. He's demonstrating guilt by going out there and asking for it to happen. And it's good that Democrats are taking a tough stance against obstruction, but unless they take an equally tough stance against confession, then what you're doing is you're actually incentivizing future wrongdoers to own it publicly, to advertise it, to be blatant about it in hopes of intimidating and scaring off anyone who now will have to make the argument that that's not normal, which it's not. So perhaps not a super insightful thought about the insanity that we're seeing play out on the national stage right now, but I do think that it's worth us making explicit and overt this discussion about what it means that he doesn't betray any self-awareness of wrongdoing. So I'm going to shut up now and we'll see what you folks have to say. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I am always honored and, to be honest, a little bit astounded when you folks show up, so I appreciate it. DLJ says, made it on time, so I should stop complaining. I'm not only not complaining, I'll give you the Nancy Pelosi. James Harris says, levels after good, you're awesome, thank you. James Harris is one of my unofficial sound tech personnel out there. Khalida has said, ugh, had too much sugar today, I assume you're referring to me. Eve says, good morning. Reller82, another new name, I believe. R. Heller, maybe, I'm guessing here. Says, hey, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Joseph Murphy says, I hate to engage in whataboutism, but China needs to release Trump's daughter's business records. Bet there is significant difference after she started working in the White House. Sure. I mean, yeah, I'm one of those radical transparency guys. Not when it comes to me, of course. Then screw all of you. But in general, for people in power, yeah, radical transparency, that's a good thing. But I'm not sure why China should release Trump's, I assume you're referring to Ivanka and her, I don't know, fashion lines or whatever she has. But they wouldn't have her business records. They would have their records of their business dealings with her. She should release her business records. I certainly agree with that. And look, I think whataboutism is sometimes okay, right? It's not. Sometimes it's bad. It's a tool of bad faith, and certainly the issue of pointing out Hunter Biden's the sort of structural corruption inherent in Hunter Biden's arrangements, that can be weaponized in bad faith, but it can also be offered in good faith, right? A troll, whatever the hell a troll is, can say something just to torpedo a conversation, and someone operating in totally good faith can believe genuinely, based on what they've seen, that the issues of systemic corruption are not getting enough attention. So yeah, I don't think it's whataboutism. I tend to reject those notions, those ways of framing things. Mr. Dawn says this is not a complicated concept. I probably made it sound too complicated. Mr. Dawn continues, if I drive 55 in a 35 zone and get caught, I'll get a ticket, period. Doesn't matter if I saw the sign or not, only the rich get this kind of consideration. And powerful, yeah, sure. And this case and the Amber Geiger trial, I mean, all of these cases where we see disparities in justice meted out, and usually the left's response is to say, you know, that's bullshit. Amber Geiger should have gone away for the rest of her life. Trump needs to be thrown in prison. My own response tends to be, I think we should, instead of equalizing our punitive nature and making sure that everyone shares equally in punishment, we ought to equalize our tendency towards mercy, and forgiveness and absolution and compassion. And I would like to see those extended to everyone as much as they are extended to the Amber Geigers, the Ivanka Trumps of the world. Felicia Ritter says, aloha, lucky to catch up with you here. It's still dark over here. Well, now it's fall, so even though I'm in New Jersey, it's still practically freaking dark here too. So my seasonal affective disorder is raring to go. But welcome from Hawaii. I assume that's where you are since you're saying aloha. Let's see, Amanda K says, gosh darn it, I missed the beginning. I rewinded back to the beginning. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that. Kalita says it's short. It is short today, and I got guff from someone yesterday for only going a half an hour, bitching at me about my lack of stamina. And so, of course, I went all tough talk and said, oh yeah, well, tomorrow, meaning today, I'll go as long as you guys are willing to, which it turns out is a lie because I have a phone meeting at noon, so I can't. Let's see. Daniel S. says, I'll lay odds of 2 to 5. You call me a person of color and ignore that is offensive to Native Americans and more, including Asian Americans. I'm not sure what that means, but I do think that the specifics of nomenclature, how we refer to people, has been evolving throughout my lifetime, and I think that's a good thing. That we're in a constant quest for precision and compassion and recognition, right? Seeing people. So I certainly don't get it right all the time, and sometimes the notion of what is right changes before I'm aware of it. So I think it's good to call people out on that kind of thing, and hopefully it comes along with some identification of why. Why is this changing? What are we achieving now when we adopt new language? Joseph Murphy says, take care of the log in your own eye before commenting on the mote in your neighbor's eye. I believe that's a biblical phrase, Joseph, right? But and I'm an atheist, but I think there's some good, useful stuff in the Bible. But I also think that it's like I have this phrase, when someone says, who are you to judge? My response is usually, who do I have to be? Like, we're not obliged to be perfect before we render judgment on the actions of others. We're allowed to be imperfect people, right? And still be able to recognize that's not okay. You can't drive 55 in a 35-mile zone. You can't, as the executive, chief executive of the United States of America, attempt to use your position to get other nations to go after your political enemies. I don't feel like I need to be a perfect person to render that judgment. Kalita says, I agree with you on the mercy thing. However, people need to be held responsible, not because I want to see them punished, but because I want them to stop hurting others. So I love this topic in a way because it's really interesting. I think we are very far from what a real enlightened society's approach is going to look like on this. Because when we talk about holding someone responsible, that's not always necessarily the same thing as teaching them not to do it again. You said, because I want them to stop hurting others. And this is something that I wrestle with as a parent, right? We have this intuitive connection between punishment and deterrent, right? That if you are punished for something, that will deter you from doing it again. Sometimes, some circumstances, some people, but certainly not always. And it's certainly far from settled that punishing people is the best, most effective way of incentivizing better behavior down the road. And I certainly think that's true for children. I mean, how many millennia have we gone believing, everyone believed, spare the rod and spoil the child, right? Well, if your 5-year-old is not behaving well, right? They're not yet evolved to the point they should be. You as a parent, they're only 5, they don't know a lot. You're a parent, you have access to all the information that's available in the world. You know the best way to help them achieve better behavior in the future, and that's to hit them. That was the prevailing parenting mode for most of human history. Like the vast majority of human history was you with all your psychological expertise, your world experience. Your 5-year-old has done something wrong. They have no knowledge of the world. Their brain is still literally unfinished. And the conclusion that humanity came to was that they needed to be held responsible and punished by striking them with your hand, and that was the best way to produce better behavior. So the whole notion of punishment and holding responsible, I view that with a great deal of suspicion as to whether or not that's really the ideal way of not even just incentivizing, but helping someone reach better behaviors. Let's see. Felicia Ritter says, compassion is in short supply in America these days. We need a more compassionate approach to society. Kalita says, isn't holding someone responsible similar to showing them the consequences of their actions? I don't know. Maybe. I guess it depends on how you do it. But even if you show them the consequences of their actions, first of all, you can certainly show someone the consequences of their actions without punishing them, right? You can explain to someone what they've done wrong without that meaning, and you get no TV tonight or whatever it might be. But I don't know that just because that everyone of any age is always going to be capable of connecting those logical dots, right? We're not perfect. It's like economics, right, has struggled with the fact that people don't behave the way economics says they should. Well, because we're messed up. Our brains are not computers. We're not perfectly logical. And so you can show us the consequences of our actions, but that doesn't mean our brains, even if one part of the brain, one conscious thinking rational part of the brain knows what you've shown us and wants to do the right thing, there's a whole party going on in there, and other people may be driving the ship the next time it comes to making that decision. So I don't know. Mistral Dawn asks me, you don't subscribe to Machiavelli's theory of parenting? I'm shocked. Seriously, I think South Africa's approach to reconciliation after apartheid should be explored further. I'm very underschooled on, I think it was called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, but I have like a crush on the idea of it and the mindset behind it and the approach to it. And it is heartbreaking in that way that we saw in the Amber Geiger trial, where Botham John's younger brother, hugged the woman who murdered his older brother. And in South Africa, black South Africans took it upon themselves to not to punish, but to seek reconciliation. And so this repeating drama that we see of black people forgiving white people their sins it's both heartbreaking, and it's something we should all aspire to, but it's also kind of tragic, and it feels like an injustice in and of itself. Not saying that the black people are doing anything wrong, more that the fact that they're even asked to rise to that standard, one which is never imposed on white victims or relatives of victims or any of that. So getting to a better place is hard, man, and it's not always super clear how we get there in a way that honors the victims of past injustices. Nails and Glitter, Clouded Mind, I believe another new name that I don't recall, says, people are messed up? I don't believe it. I love that this is coming from someone with clouded mind, and I'm sure you did that with all consciousness. Nails and Glitter, another newbie. I please don't be offended. I consider that a glorious thing. Welcome, Nails and Glitter, says, but does America have consciousness of guilt? Nope, especially when it comes to racism. Deny, deny, deny. Business as usual is corruption. I think that's a really good point about America not having consciousness of guilt. This notion that to love America, you have to think it is to be, it's perfect, right? Obama got hit hard for what was called an apology tour. Well, if you're the most powerful presence on the planet, and essentially have been for the last 50 years, and it's been documented that you've done shitty shit around the world, sorry is pretty much the minimum that we expect of our 5-year-olds. So to me, if you see shame being attached to apology or regret or remorse, that to me is a horrific moral shame right there. The notion that you're perfect. I love that song. What's his name? Lee Gatewood or something like that. Proud to be an American, where he says, "At least I know I'm free." Like, how's that better than apologizing? He's basically saying, my country is totally shitty, but I'm not in the cage, so it's got that going for it. That's a hell of a lot more of taking a dump on America than saying, we aspire to do better and we failed to meet our aspirations in the past. I mean, the notion, at least I'm free, like that's taking a dump on America. And by the way, you're fully within your rights to do so, but let's not pretend that saying, at least I know I'm free, that's patriotic, but I'm sorry that we didn't live up to our own ideals, that's somehow unpatriotic. Let's get that calculus straight there. Let's see. Someone said, and of course I missed it, Eve Gussman, hope you won't take offense if I called you an old timer, says reconciliation didn't work for Spain. People are still seeking justice. That's interesting. And if I had more time, I'd be fascinated to sort of see when, where, and why reconciliation has worked and when it hasn't. James Harris says, thank you for voicing this. I'm going to assume you're talking about me and some awesome thing that I said, but I'm also going to acknowledge that maybe you're talking about something someone said in the chat box, and if I missed it, I'm sorry, but I hope you'll call it out. X4 says, it's ridiculous to paint all of America with the same brush nails and glitter, as if white people didn't die by the hundreds of thousands fighting for the civil rights of POC. So I agree with the concept that it's ridiculous, I guess, to paint all of America with one brush, but you can still talk about what America broadly has done. That doesn't mean we're saying that everyone in America endorsed and was morally culpable for those actions. So I think your broader point is right, but I don't think it applies to nails and glitter here. But I also feel like I'm intruding on something that's going on between the two of you in the chat box, so maybe I should shut up. Hell's Mouth says, yeah, I'm the only perfect one. Nailed it, Hell's Mouth. Let's see. Okay. Now I'm kind of getting lost here because you guys are moving fast now. Blue Jay says, no, people are biased and they live in America. Okay, I'm kind of losing the thread here. So I'm going to keep the chat box up so you guys can keep going at it. And if YouTube sometimes, unfortunately, like disables the chat afterwards, so please commute your thoughts over to the comment box, and I'll try to respond if I see any additional stuff there. And to whomever I promised that I would do a marathon today, I'm busted. You caught me. I'm not. But thanks again for everyone joining me today for this. We are here every weekday, Monday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That's TYTI Daily, and you'll get a notification if you subscribe to TYT Investigates, which is, of course, a channel of the sprawling TYT Young Turks network. And if you're interested in seeing our reporting when those go up, and original videos and things like that, we also have our Facebook page, TYT Investigates on Facebook. You can like and follow us there. And even if you don't do any of that, please do take care of each other, take care of yourselves, and be kind to each other in the chat box, okay? We can disagree, but let's be kind, let's be compassionate, let's model the behavior we're trying to see. Take care, bye.